Hi, welcome everyone to the new view. We're going to have everybody that's participating today just quickly say their name and say hello,
Okay,
starting
I'm
with,
Diane Perlman. Diane
yeah, go for
Perlman.
it, Diane Perlman.
Ginger Metro.
Elizabeth Gould.
Ellen Brown.
Josh Middledorf.
Everybody? Okay. We are very happy to have back for the second time on the new view Byron Belitsos. We wanted to continue that conversation we had with him a few weeks ago, so I'm going to read a short bio and then he's going to start us off. But Byron is a leading exponent of the Urantia book with training in philosophy, psychology, history, and theology. He's a publisher, editor, or co author of numerous acclaimed and award winning books, including many related to the Urantia revelation. A student of the Urantia book for 4 decades, he has spoken about its teachings at many conferences and on innumerable radio and TV programs. I'm going to put a long bio about Byron in the notes to this program. So, welcome, Byron. We're looking forward to hearing from you again.
Thanks so much. And it's good to be back to see you all. It's really a great experience last time. So let's pick up the thread. And I will amend the bio. That's a very old bio when I was, kind of a Urantia maven. And, I still very much involved with that community, but I've expanded quite a bit beyond that to
Yeah,
a
please
bigger
do.
community. And we can talk, but the Urantia book has a little bit to do with this topic today, so we can maybe cover that as well. So how do you want to proceed? Just launch in to something?
You recently sent out a link to deep, multidimensional discussion material about Venezuela.
Yeah.
And then a more recent one just came in today about Greenland. So I was so fascinated with the Venezuelan one. I encouraged everybody to watch it. And I printed out the 16 pages of the transcription and listened to it again. So
Okay.
others, please say what you might, if top of your list for Byron to launch with. Any thoughts?
Well, I've actually got
Okay.
about 7 different topics that we could kind of choose from that I wanted to, in a global way, kind of suggest these, and then we could maybe kind of do big picture and do all of them or many of them. So why don't I do that list first? So you've got kind of the basic outline of foreign policy, United States foreign policy is really kind of the big topic. But under that, of course, is the bifurcation of covert and overt. That's very important for this discussion, for any political discussion. We learned that from Catherine Austin Fitts a long time ago. So the covert part of this is more ever critical than ever, but it continues to be fairly hidden. So this supposed revelation of GFL is questionable source, but it's the best thing we got. So under that is the
Hey,
Venezuelan
Byron, I'm going to interrupt you when you use like GFL, that maybe not everybody knows what that means.
Galactic Federation of Light, GFL.
Thanks.
Um, you bet. So under that is Venezuela, Iran, and as of today, Greenland, and then two correlating factors among many. One is David Clements. Anybody follow him? Dr. David Clements, the physicist out of Oxford. And then a wild card guy named Ishmael Perez. Anybody follow him? Okay, so we can't even talk about those quite yet. But so if I may, then maybe we should say this. If folks have prepared a little bit with Venezuela, we can get into that after an introduction. And then I'd like to introduce more about what they said about Iran a couple of days ago. I sent that link to everybody. I think I did. And that's momentous stuff. And it's an imminent, urgent stuff. And then the thing this morning on Greenland was just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's correlations with that that are very important. So should
All of it.
yeah, all of it. You want, yeah. We're holistic thinker, Diane. Yeah,
Well, the big picture behind all of it, I said they're not
yeah,
separate.
I'm totally with
They're
you.
interconnected.
And also
That's
you, as some of us, in terms of these messages, we have a lot that we can kind of grok and understand and grasp intuitively as truthful. But then the issue seems to be, what role is Trump and these white hats playing? And
yeah.
some of that's not meshing, I think, for many of us.
Yeah, I think we should start there, Alana. I think that's the thing that is bothering everybody and getting me in trouble as well as a lot of other people. So let's look at that. And I think what the fundamental thing I believe to think about that is that it's layered in two big factors, but under that there are four or five other factors. But the big factor, I think, is the claim of the Earth Alliance, right? So right by itself, that's questionable and debatable claim that there's this branch of more or less of the U.S. military and other forces, intelligence and military around the world that are sort of the good guys that have kind of broken off in a covert space to do sort of the will of the people of the earth, you might say, that they're representing the people, the masses of the people and their interests, and they mean it from the heart. It's really a heartful thing. I believe that is happening with this so-called Earth Alliance, also known as the White Hats, that they are in an alliance with each other, but in particular with benign ETs. So on this benign ETs, the reason that they are an intervention is that there's a necessity for that because the sort of the forces on Earth cannot really handle the consequences of what's gone down in the last couple of hundred years, and it's much of this the consequence of things that happen because of off-planet forces anyway. So the source of our problems, much of it, as I said last time, in my view, just based on the Urantia book, but many other sources, anywhere from Zecharia Sitchin to, you name ancient aliens or whatever. There's other forces that have determined our trajectory in the history of the planet because of not so benign off-planet intervention. And there's so many different ways to characterize it, and we could get lost and go down corridors and get lost on this. So let's keep it at a more abstract, I think, level, which is the sort of the forces of light, the forces of darkness, which is one easy way to do this, but also misleading. But let's try it. So really, Trump is brought into this, according to my sources, as the front man. Okay, and I've stated that in writing and here and there. And a lot of people have been talking about this claim, and that's from Galactic Federation of Light. That's their phrase, but it appears to be good evidence that he's like a puppet almost of the alliance, of the Earth Alliance. The reason is that it's transactional, that he was approached at a certain point and he was invited to become their front. And in exchange, they would support him to get elected in 2016. So this is a covert op uh, that was posed against the other covert operatives, right, who were CIA, based, sort of, faction that was wanted to get their people in 2016 and elected, right? So you got these two covert forces, not just one, not just the Russiagate, people, led by Obama, but also and the CIA, et cetera, but also this underground faction that is trying to put Trump in there instead. That's the best they could come up with. That's pretty sad, but on the other side is it's practical because he was electable. He could be elected, in fact, was elected. And, you need to be able to harness, popular support to be elected. So, some professor somewhere couldn't do that, but had to be, a charismatic person like this who's got a, huge ego has an interest in being the leader, and so he pulled it off. So you have to acknowledge that as a historic fact of that he was able to do this and give him his due credit for that. So meanwhile, the forces of the deep state were able to fairly neutralize his first term. But what seemed to be on the agenda, according to all my sources, is that there was going to be a pending of the deep state in his first term. But he just didn't have the chops to do it. And I don't think that the Earth Alliance was sufficiently ready to do it anyway, according to sources like Michael Salla, that the sort of the off-planet warfare, and I mean that, was not ready really for this turn of events, and it didn't really turn until 2021 or 2022, when we get to that in a minute.
Okay,
But
Brian, I'm going to interrupt you because Ellen raised her hand. So we're going to make a little.
well, I
Ellen, you
only made
wanted to
one
give
little
an
point, but go
input?
ahead. Go ahead. Are we going to have a Trump
I was
debate?
just going to say, I watch all these channelers. I don't know, just kind of an addiction in the evening. I don't know if you know Elizabeth April, but she
Yes, yes,
said,
yes.
she read Trump, and she said his role was to take down all these systems. I don't know if you saw that there's 66 national or international organizations that he just pulled the US out of. And of course, he has been he's the wrecking ball, taking down the old system. And you obviously do have to take down the old system in order to build something new. And from my interest is the money system, and it seems to
Right.
be going down. So anyway,
All right.
just
Well, let me incorporate that. I mean, Elizabeth April is a remote viewer, but not, in my view, a reliable remote viewer. She doesn't use remote viewer methodology. I mean, it's not even close. But a lot of her stuff seems interesting, and but I
yeah.
think she's
I just thought
getting.
that was a good point. You could be on the team, and so, I mean, if you just think of his personality, who else has the ability to go out there and yell at the WEF and the Eurozone, and I don't
Yeah.
know. It just seems to me it takes a certain type of personality, and he does have that personality.
Yeah, and I think it was chosen well in that sense. If you're going to kind of wreck the old system, and when we say old system, we mean an ancient system. I mean, it's really, starts from Babylon or something. So
Right.
you're doing a lot of wrecking here, and you need a big person to do that. But I think it's more structure to it than that. In other words, my view is that he's actually taking orders from the Earth Alliance, and they
Consciously?
are. Yes, yes. This
Conscious
speculative
of it.
thought. This is speculative.
Speculatively, consciously.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a liaison. I speculate that there's a liaison to him, saying, "Look, we made a deal with you in 2014, 2015 to put you in office. Here's the things we're doing, and we are a faction in your military and mainly in the Space Force Command,
Uh,
right? That's where
yeah,
they're focused. But I
yeah.
theorize that it's also from Navy factions as well.
So
How,
does
how,
some speaker come to him? Does some human person come
Yeah,
and show
yeah.
up and talk to him?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes. I
thanks.
think so.
Because he's not
Yeah.
himself that intuitive that he's getting it from
No, no, no. Yeah, but it's been
somebody's coming to
stated.
him. Okay,
who,
thank
Yeah,
you.
who is coming to him?
a liaison from the faction, which again, in my view, is a military faction, um, that's opposed to the deep state. In other words, the deep state bifurcated into sort of the good guys and the bad guys, right? So, but these are people who were on the inside as part of the deep state, and they have a conscience. Basically, these are people that have wives and kids, and they're normal people, and they're working there, and they're seeing, crimes
Hmm.
being committed against the people, and and also a lot of them don't want to be swept up in mass arrests
These are
either.
like the awakened warriors. They're like our warriors for peace, our military warriors for peace guys on the inside or
Yeah.
retired from inside. Okay.
I don't think that's, a pattern that's very different. I mean, all throughout history, there've been, empires that had, where the military breaks in two or three or whatever, and you have civil war, right? So basically, this is the proto-civil war. And so but it's for survival of the planet, really. It's not just survival of the country. That's why the so-called white hats have all countries, many countries represented, said by some to be over 100 countries are represented in it, but they allow the U.S. to be in the lead because of its more advanced technology, because a lot of this has to do with technology and possession of even ET technology, zero point, propulsion, et cetera, that we have more access and we have longer time of reverse engineering craft and that sort of thing to be involved in the bigger conflict, which is a solar system conflict, right? So it's solar system wide conflict. And so Trump is front man for that. And look, I mean, there's not a lot of evidence, but one of the best pieces of evidence is the fact that the head of the more or less Space Force of Israel put this out in 2020. And I think some of you know this, right? That Eshad Haim, who's now retired in 2020, stated that in a very highly credible, highly decorated, general in Israel. At the time, he was retired at the time, and he said, well, it's well known to us that Trump was working with the Galactic Federation, and that in 2019 he wanted to disclose that. And the Federation, the ET said, the people aren't ready, don't do that. So he stated this in Hebrew, and it was in a major Hebrew newspaper.
Wow.
And that then they didn't know it got translated, and so then it propagated throughout the world and became a big sensation, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And so that's on the record. And the guy's never denied, nobody's ever denied it. And they just, buried it. Nobody talks about it, but it's pretty widely known. So this is more evidence, but I'm not saying the evidence is that strong. What I do say is that the externals of this are such that it's not a neocon operation going on, for example, in Venezuela. It's not a regime change operation. But let me get back to this more abstract so that one factor is like three factors. Factor one, there's this opposition to the cabal, and that's the Earth Alliance / White Hats in alliance with benign ETs, right? So the agreement still stands. However, there's a mitigating factor that adds a lot of chaos, which is that Trump has violated, in my view, is speculative, violated the agreement because of his alliance with Netanyahu and with Israel. So Israel's, more or less epicenter of the deep state, right? So, this is an anti-deep state operation being led by the Earth Alliance, and yet your front man is allied with Zionists who are taking over the Middle East through genocide. So this wrecks the thing more or less in a way. And in my view, and I really came to it over the weekend, that because of the Zionist connection, Trump's approach is self-defeating to the mission. But so that's factor two. I don't think we even need to go into it. We all know this is what, this is an overt, and covert alliance, U.S. with Zionism. And I'll get to factor three, and I'll take a one question. Factor three, I just want to get that in. Factor three is the corruption, incompetence, and stupidity of Trump and his leadership on the overt side, right? So this is his cabinet, his team. The whole thing becomes quite convoluted, really, and with domestic policy, which is not my specialty, but domestic, it's kind of a Gestapo tactic in the streets of, which is an expression of what, I would think that the sort of the mandate from the Earth Alliance is, yes, this importation of immigrants is a security problem. If you look at England or Germany or France, been over there lately, especially England. This is part of the so-called deep state globalist, program, is to flood these countries with immigrants who are, well-meaning people, but sometimes not.
Byron, my friend in Germany sent me a video showing the extreme conditions of poverty, drug addiction, homelessness on the streets of Frankfurt, Germany. I think this is what we're seeing, the implosion of Europe's population for one and maybe many reasons, but disorganized states, and it's certainly true in the United States now.
I need to say something though
Yeah,
before
please.
we
Yeah,
keep going
you
on
had your hand up. Yeah.
because you were talking about how Trump is kind of sabotaging it or he's going against the plan by aligning with Netanyahu and so on. And I'm getting and Galexis, the group I channel gets it. My husband gets it. Other people get it. That Trump's not going to make it through his term. I'm wondering if there's some, if you sense or know of any particular movement that they're going to need to take Trump down or depose
Oh,
him.
yeah. I mean, there's probably 20 movements to take Trump down. I
Okay,
mean,
but then if he goes down, then we've got the vice president.
yeah, that's right.
And
That's what
now
you
there's a
got.
vice president coordinated into this program
Yeah,
as
he's
well.
read into it. Yeah, there's no doubt in my
Okay,
mind that he's read into it, and the whole most of the cabinet is read into it for sure.
okay.
But yeah, no, so the last part of this is sort of factor three, which is these guys are very poor in their implementation of these things and corrupt, and they're helping their own friends and they're lining the pockets of billionaires while they do it, right? So really that Trump has to go because the even if you are a Trump supporter, you have to say he has to go because he's unable to execute which is generally a positive plan, to take out the deep state. He's not executing it because he's beholden, particular to these donors, that,
Is that why he's so hooked into Netanyahu? Is there his donors? How do they
yeah, I mean, it's,
control?
Diane can speak to that more than I, but it's bigger than that. But yeah, I mean, donors are very substantive and also it's in his family, right? So, his son-in-law and his daughter are, members of the Shabbat, and to say it right, sect, which is highly
But
influential in this equation. Chabad sect, very highly influential political group
Some say he's also afraid
and
for
he's
his
probably
life.
afraid of these, I mean, he's probably blackmailed, right? I mean, but it's a pretty high level blackmail, I mean, but the outcome just got to look at the behavior. Look, they're not pulling back, but there was a little bit of hope, when it looked like he was not going to bomb Iran as of a few days ago, right? So it looked like maybe he's going to pull back. But if you look at the best of the alternative, analysts, like the judge, what's his name, Judge,
Napoleon,
yeah,
Napolitano,
can never say the name,
Napolitano.
even though in Greek I should be able to say it. Napolitano.
Yeah.
Those guys that most of us watch, Mearsheimer and all the rest, people he has on there. They have no knowledge, of course, of these structures we're talking about. That's number one. Number two, we still have to look on the surface, right? So on the surface of this, Trump more or less has to go along with Netanyahu.
Hmm.
Maybe not this week, but they've moved all the material and ships into place for this. However, on the other side, every single country in the Middle East has stated, I don't know if that was not widely reported, that they will not allow him to stage the bombing of Iran from their bases, U.S. bases. Every single one. Think of it, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, I think, all of them. And they got together and said, we're just not going to do this. And so he has to launch this bombing from Europe.
Wow.
who
Right. So that's a
is
big
willing to do
tactical.
it?
What's that?
Who's willing to do it in Europe?
He's willing to do it. Trump is.
Who?
Who?
She says
Who?
who?
Who
in
is?
Europe?
None of those countries in the
None.
Middle East, not one.
If
And
we've seen the map of Iran and U.S. military bases completely surround Iran, none of them are inside Iran.
well, they're not inside Iran, but they're in these
But
countries
there's
by permit.
totally all the countries surrounding Iran have military bases, U.S.
Right. He cannot launch from there, but he can launch from what is it, Diego Island? I forget what it
Oh
is.
my gosh, in the Indian
Which is
Ocean
That's
there.
in the Indian, yeah, or he can launch from
Diego Diego
sites
Garcia.
in Europe,
Yeah,
but
he
they
could
have to
launch from Diego Garcia.
Diego Garcia. They, I don't know how it got that funny name, but they have to or launch from Europe, meaning they'd have to, these planes would have to be refueled in the air on the way. It's get complicated. That means the element of surprise is taken away. And number two, Iran can target our bases easy, real easy, and hit them. Okay, it's going to be a lot of consequences if he does this for Netanyahu. So it doesn't mean that he's divorcing from Netanyahu. It just means tactically it's not going to work. Also, Iran was able to neutralize the Starlink connectivity. I don't know if you guys heard that. That was a huge tactical surprise. That's like almost impossible to do, but they took it down, and that's big part of the surveillance. So,
Oh,
so there's a lot of pieces, and if you keep watching the
Elon
news,
Musk's thing, right? Starlink is Elon Musk's.
Elon Musk things,
Yeah.
which is how they do their targeting in Ukraine
And
using
who
that.
took it down, Byron? Who took down Starlink?
Iran jammed it. They jammed it. It's
Oh,
not known how they did it. Yeah.
oh,
They
Yeah.
did it with help from the Russians, apparently.
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Marilyn. Yeah, the Russians are certainly helping, and the Chinese seem to be helping as
Wow.
well. And so, he's got a lot of reasons not to do it, other than that he's divorcing himself from, from the Zionists. So I still hold that this is why he has to be removed, actually by his own allies. If he continues this, for months into the year, he will endanger his presidency and his life. And because the lineup of enemies is, beyond belief. It's just wild. However, so this, to summarize this, we got three factors. One, that there is, I think, very strong evidence that the U.S. Space Force and the Navy, less evidence, has this faction. Not only is it doing covert stuff on Earth, but in the solar system. And I don't know if you guys saw my interview with Michael Sala. He's really the resident expert on on much of this in terms of the ET activity in the solar system. He's done by far the most research in the world, I would say. And I have his books here. I mean, so he's, the fact that there's been a solar system-wide conflict is established by his work and by his interviews, of which there are hundreds. And, almost all the whistleblowers go to him now. That's where they go. They go to him, and he's overwhelmed, with them. Because, he interviewed me, and it took 3 weeks to get my interview edited because he had like five in the pipeline, you know.
whew.
By the way, he had a heart attack 2 days ago. He's in the hospital.
Oh no.
And
Light and love to Michael Sala.
right, sending energy because the guy's really a hero in that he has done more than anybody else to bring out the fact that the Earth Alliance exists and that and what its circumstances are because of the people interviews that are the direct witnesses. So these are real whistleblowers. Um, so that's factor one. Again, summarizing. Factor two, the Zionist connection of Trump is self-defeating. Factor three is the corruption, sadism, and convoluted nature. The very poor execution means that this is a highly dangerous and unstable situation. And if Trump doesn't turn around, basically the way they could turn it around and keep him is to go public sooner than they might have. That is to say that the White Hats, so-called, would have to show their hand really soon because there are just too many people that should be in the know who are not. It's too many. The people that are talking about this are, kind of amateurs like me, really, that are not, that, and others are, Elizabeth April or April Elizabeth, whatever it is.
All
you
right.
know,
Could you name 3 or 4 people who you would consider should be in the know?
the foreign policy, the people like us should be in the know. People follow this, and Diane is ahead of most of her colleagues, in her field, and she's up on this. But the
What
people that are
about
in judgment,
influencers that are higher profile than any of us?
yeah, actual professional people like Mearsheimer. It's pathetic, to see these guys they have no knowledge of a covert realm. They know the CIA is doing stuff, right, covertly, but they have no idea about an off-planet, factor.
Byron,
Just
what
none.
about Dennis Kucinich?
He's a good question. I don't see the evidence that he is
He would be
aware.
open to it. He would be
Oh my
open to it.
gosh,
He's
the years he
open, but I
spent
don't.
with Shirley MacLaine and he was talking about ETs years ago. Remember, they were criticizing
Yeah,
him for it.
At UFOs, yeah.
yeah, but he's not at this level looking at, he's still in the Democratic Party kind of wing of, he just put out this thing, that really sounded like a Democratic Party talking points. He's not,
Oh,
he
Scott
should be.
Ritter,
He spoke at the 9/11 conference
yeah.
in DC.
Yeah, no, 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 all of that is true,
is
but
Scott
this
Ritter on
isn't.
your list?
This is the off-planet factor. This is the ET factor. This is about a right-wing theory, really, right? Because the left sold out. The left stopped being an opponent of the deep state sometime in the 80s or 90s. The left gave it up, right? Chomsky and the left gave this up. So they ceded into the vacuum when the libertarians and the right, and that's too bad. You know, I started
So
out as
you're
a
looking
Marxist.
at MAGA people
Yeah,
as
MAGA is, but not the the street level MAGA, but sort of the intellectuals as more or less the elite of MAGA
who are
took
they?
took on the deep state and the opposition to the deep state. Who are the influencers? I mean,
MAGAs.
in terms of this, that are in the public eye talking about the ET factor, I can't think of one.
Or just the leaders that are in MAGA that may be influencers to link with.
Oh, for us to link with, sort of, or
Yeah,
researchers to link with? Yeah, I mean, Diane and I are here in Washington, D.C. I can't think of anybody that's got an open door that I
I
know.
can't even think of anybody who I would say is a big megaphone for MAGA. I mean, let's
Well,
keep that in mind that we locate 2 or 3 of those people. Okay.
Oh,
Jim Garrison has been talking to people in Congress.
yeah.
So there may be people that are confidentially aware, but they are not public. So,
Yeah,
but you could
Jim
ask
is a
Jim,
good, Jim
and
rejects
Danny
this.
Sheehan would know.
Sheehan and Jim reject this line of inquiry.
Okay.
I presented this material to Jim in December, and he was really against it. He's a friend of mine, and we work on other things, but because it's too much speculative. It is quite speculative and risky. We don't have good enough sources.
Right. There's an event
And
tomorrow at the National Press Club
yeah,
about
but
this.
that's old fashioned ET.
Uh-huh.
That's like the 1990s. Well, we think there was this craft that was over Brazil, and we have whistleblowers, and it was 1996. Like they're rehashing this stuff. It's not in this ballpark. This is a very, volatile area, and it gets, if I weren't old and retired, I would not do it either.
The third rail.
It's
But this is
definitely,
where the woo-woo touches the geopolitics, touches the ground, the
there you
money
go.
problem, the land problem, the real nitty-gritty of how power is structured and formulated on the planet. That's why I
Yeah,
was so enthusiastic about reading the Venezuela
yeah,
report.
yeah,
And I
isn't that
think
amazing?
Greenland, the one that just came out also.
Right.
I'm
So
not
let's,
seeing channeling like this before
no,
that goes so deep.
yeah, there's never been
Okay.
anything like it. Yeah,
Okay,
because I mean, I've been around the channeling stuff my whole life, basically, and published many books by channelers over the years. That means you edit their stuff too. You have to look at it really close, and nobody can channel stuff like this. It's
okay.
like the Venezuela thing. That's the people, that's so advanced that. But many of these are like that. You can't really, if you work with channelers, you can't envision anybody channeling this unless
Look,
they're
I,
really
I
adept.
I printed all the Venezuela stuff out. Then I listened to it again. I highlighted a
Yeah,
lot of the pages. It's
yeah,
amazing. Everybody's got to look at this stuff.
yeah.
I
That's
listen.
what it's like. That
And I
I'm.
wonder if you could you give a summary of the content of each of those? I missed the Greenland one. I'll
Came
listen
out.
later, but yeah, I mean, I think just for viewers, it's hard to say it's mind-blowing without sort of summarizing mind-blowing,
Yeah.
what's mind-blowing about it.
Do you want? How fresh is this for you,
Pretty
Alana?
fresh. I mean,
Do you want to
it's
do
It's not
Venezuela and
for,
I'll do
for this.
Iran?
Let me
barely
summarize it.
I
Summarize
want
it
to
for
do Iran. That's more fresh, and you can
okay.
do.
It's barely possible to summarize this stuff. I've got almost every page green lighted. But I mean, essentially, it's showing Venezuela as an important node in the whole geopolitical, in the multipolar world creation. Who controls what? It's not just about oil; it's about all kind of rare earth minerals there, and the importance of rare earth minerals for who's going to control the AI, who's going to control, be the top dog on the planet. So the reverberations from Venezuela, it's really a worldwide node of the power structure scramble as it is right now, and it goes into lots of details on that. I think that's a succinct overview.
And one thing, one more piece, it's a message to like all leaders in the world, the symbol that nothing can protect you, no guards, no
Yeah,
safe house.
yeah,
So it's a
anybody can be
message.
grabbed.
Can I
It's a
push back a little on that?
Go for it.
How do you reconcile that with the idea that the ET's whole technology that's going to make oil obsolete will make standard computer technology obsolete? And so we won't need the rare earths and we won't need the oil.
You will need the rare earths though. Yeah, for high tech. Absolutely the case, Josh. Right?
and
You need
silver.
silver.
You're
You need
asking me,
lithium.
right? This is new technology that we don't know anything about yet because it hasn't been revealed to us. But presumably, it um, it provides other means of computing besides with chips.
Well, there's
Uh,
also telepathy and the whole development of consciousness that's happening. That's also going to enable us to connect in various kinds of conceptual, energetic, dimensional grids and get information directly. And once people are trained in that and growing into that, you can't really control anybody from propaganda and AI and all that.
Ginger, yeah, that's a factor, but now we're talking about tech. Um, I think another point, Ginger, you'll agree with is the tech doesn't work unless you're at the level of consciousness that it will work. Right.
Yes.
That's very big teaching from the GFL statements, right? So literally they're stories of people having the tech and they can't operate it because their consciousness is so, low level, and so they give up, right? So that's another, but it's you can have, face to face telepathy at a distance, right? And all that to get knowledge. But here we're talking about energy production
So
mainly.
let me qualify that and say there are two kinds of technology. There's the nuts and bolts, completely mechanical technology. A steam engine works no matter who is operating it. A computer gives the same results whether there's somebody who's highly enlightened sitting in front of the screen or whether it's a dumb jerk like me. It's the same result. And there are other forms of technology which are speculative, which were called psionics, PSY psionic or PSI
Yes, yeah.
psionics by Giorgiani and others, which combine mental abilities with machines. And there's the telepathy and remote viewing seen as a technology, and these definitely do depend on who's doing it and what kind of attitude they bring. So there's
Right.
two classes of technology.
And
Hey,
the GFL transmissions add a lot of detail to what Josh said, a lot, a whole
yeah,
lot.
but I've
And
got
it
two
does,
sentences here from the Venezuela one that directly summarizes what we've just been saying.
all right,
Venezuela, in the framework you're exploring, is a vivid illustration of how power operates through nodes, corridors, materials, and narratives.
there you
Yet,
go.
the deeper lesson is not geopolitical. The deeper lesson is that consciousness changes the rule book.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Right. But there is a motive we should establish. And Alana, see if you agree, having being fresh with that transmission. They do want to control the good guys, right? Want to have access to rare earth metals for the future, for the tech of the future. You cannot dispense with that, period. You have to do that. And Venezuela is
Yeah, and
sitting.
I'm pushing back on that. And I
Me
don't know
too.
that that's true. I don't know what the
Me
technology
too.
is that needs rare earth metals. And I
Well,
do know that there's even on the fringe of the public domain, there's technology for transmuting one element into another. There's
Mhm.
consistent reports from, there are many reports that biology is capable of turning one element into another, and that the
right.
rare earths might be manufacturable without having to mine Venezuela.
But
So yes, it might be true, but I'm not 100% there yet.
we may be
Me
talking
too.
about timelines here. Timelines, the immediate future timeline, the rare earths are important. And then moving into this other kind of more ethereal technology that Josh is talking about. So back to what I think our active field is the current realities of our timeline. And my last input from the Venezuela stuff is they're saying, look at the people, look at what's happening to the people of that country, serve the people. And I think that is key. Serve the people in love, wherever the conflicts are, in the
Yeah.
bigger picture of if we're having conflicts have been over resources and land for how many millennia on this planet. So I mean the keynote being, is it going to be world warfare or is it going to be earth share? And that goes right down to the ground, to the level of how somebody in a village or city in Venezuela is living now. What are their living conditions? What rules can we apply from higher wisdom that's going to enable all those people within the United States as well to have food, shelter, water, education, and healthcare, the basics for survival, the absolute physical 3D basics. How can we bring the higher dimensional consciousness so that the growing homelessness in my little town in Pennsylvania is going to start shrinking instead of expanding?
Right. Very well said. Thank you. Yeah. So that's a
Mhm.
big message. Much of what the Venezuela transmission is doing is like a graduate seminar in, I don't know, social science
Mhm.
of telling you here's the methodology of how to think about this. I've never seen a channeling like this, and I've looked
No.
at hundreds. It's here's the best method for you to consider this. In other words, they're not going to take sides, anti-Trump, pro-Trump. They're not that crude. They're going to say, here's how to think about this. Think about the rare earths that people want to get. Think about the fact that a lot of that country is not even governed. Think about the fact that we know that there is human trafficking. Think about the fact that the skimming off of profits coming from a node like this goes somewhere. Where does it go? Think about that. Where would it go? Well, it goes to the city of London.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
They actually, so think
The
about
Vatican
these
Bank.
pathways that
Yeah.
are out there. They're not saying it is that, they're just saying think about that. And they give you about 50 things like that to think about in 90 minutes. But we just scratch the surface with Venezuela. But I think the
But
deal,
I'll just say one line at the end, one that I remember. You said like dehumanization is the gateway drug to control, and that the solutions a lot were to form communities and to grow food and to learn how to resist, teach people how to resist psychological manipulation and propaganda and to not let them have a grip on us. But
Thank you.
yes, I want to hear about Greenland too. So.
Oh, well, since you ask, it's fun. The Greenland thing is sort of because I didn't get very far into it, but it mentions space arcs, and that's a new factor in this that they've never brought up, but is brought up by especially by Elena Danaan, if any of you follow her,
I do.
and Michael Salla, who
Yeah.
really is the premier sort of journalist in the world on this, and that it's a recent revelation. Now, I'll just do it because it's fun, because it's a little bit out of order, but basically there's many federations, right? So there's an intergalactic confederation, which is older and bigger, okay, that was here in eons ago, before any of the other federations. And they colonized, but they were benign. And they actually were on planet Earth a really, really long time ago and did a lot of constructive things here. But then turns out that there was a intergalactic war, and it actually came into our solar system. And this federation, not federation, or confederation, left the solar system, even though they probably could have won the war. They ceded this territory, so to speak, and they left behind their technology in these arcs. They call them arcs, and they're
So,
bigger.
Byron, can you briefly summarize the evidence for the story you tell about the Intergalactic Federation and that they're the good guys and that they were once here and they left their technology? How do we know that?
We know it from Michael Salla because he interviews all the whistleblowers. So he had independent whistleblowers coming to him in beginning 2019, two of them from France, really different direction. One from this guy named JD, if anybody knows who that is major kind of whistleblower, kind of quasi-authorized to speak for the good guys. So JD, who's always had a mask, has been revealing this for a number of years to him about the space arcs, and has been part of the special ops that goes to inspect them. And when he gets to these locations, there are Russians there, there are Chinese people, this is a global endeavor. And then the third source was another independent source. I forget who it was. Then there's a fourth source, which is channeling to Elena Danaan from Thor Han, H-A-N. It's a very major source for everybody, this guy with the Galactic Federation. He's from the Galactic Federation, not the Intergalactic Federation. So there's 4 or 5 sources that state this, and 3 witnesses who've seen this. So the one that's in Antarctica, there's a lot of evidence for that, Joshua, if you look it up. Space Arcs, ARK, and one in Antarctica. And Antarctica is a major hub for many things. So the one that's under the ice there is beginning to activate. And these activate because of human consciousness. As consciousness rises, they activate, and they're programmed to activate as the frequency goes up. So the one down there began to melt the ice. And there's scientific, look it up, there's evidence that the ice was melting in this region. And I think beginning 2019, something like that. But if you really want to get into this, I'll send you the stuff I have on this. But the fact that the GFL's now talking about space arcs, that just floored me this morning, because I thought, well, this is really too much and too far out for anybody. But now they're piling on these things as fast as they can. It's like impossible to keep up. I mean, that was kind of a turning point for me this morning, because when I saw that, I said, this is revelation time. They're putting it out as fast as they can, and they're hoping groups like us, become study groups, I guess, because you can't possibly do this by yourself, which I'm trying to do sort of. And it's just to look up the space arcs will take you a whole week.
What is a space arc?
Good question. These are literally ET ships that are loaded with biological, um, informational, like they're libraries of all the constructive things that were done on the planet and were left behind for a later date when they would activate when our frequency got high enough. I know it sounds crazy. So and there are like a dozen of them. There's one in Ukraine, by the way.
Yeah,
Are they in the air or are they on the ground or
They're
they're
underground.
physical.
they're
They're
underground?
physical. They're like big spaceships, real big, big,
Are they
big.
underground?
They're buried underground.
How did
Yeah.
they get there?
Isn't the Ark of the Covenant supposed to be one? I think.
That's another item. It's not that kind of arc, yeah. But we could get into that. But yeah, they know of I think 6 locations, but they think there are many more because
I think this is real relevant to what the great Siberian Russian seer avatar embodied now, Anastasia, in her 9 ringing cedar books, when she
right,
talks about the dolmens, where ages ago, maybe Vedic period, when consciousness was much higher, and they knew it was going to dip lower, but they wanted to have some vibrational tracings of the higher consciousness. And they were thinking the dolmens were just burial places, stone burial places. And then she put out that no, this was where the higher consciousness people went into and closed themselves into these stone structures and meditated at a high vibration until their body passed. And because they knew that when they were rediscovered, people would be able to go to the dolmen rock stones, touch them, and this would enliven their consciousness.
yeah.
It feels real similar. And so people started finding dolmens around the world. That's another fascinating thing. I think it's relevant because we're talking about as consciousness raising, then certain material objects and items start releasing certain kinds of information. Yeah, I think that's what we're saying.
That's the idea. Yeah, that's
Where's the
very much
nearest
idea.
one? Let's
I'm sorry?
go. Where's
Look
the
up
nearest
dolmen,
dolmen?
Dolmens, Josh. Look up dolmens online.
Where's the
They
nearest
show,
one to us? We can visit them together.
sure.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
need to
right.
do a pilgrimage.
To Russia. All right. All right, now I want to talk about Iran. And these are my recent notes on Iran. And that's yet again a huge, overwhelming transmission. So you guys know about ley lines, Ley, ley lines, right? So ley
No,
lines
I
are
don't know
a
what that
big
is.
factor and must be
No.
understood. So it's the so-called Earth grid.
Diane says she doesn't know, so others may
Yeah,
not
Yeah,
know.
what
It's
I'm
is
like
going
the
to
it?
define.
acupressure lines in the body or the energy lines in the body and the energy field. Well, the Earth has that energy field as well. So it's lines of energy, and then they can cross, and can be nodes. It's like information about the planet that's concentrated in these energy lines. Is that sufficient, Byron?
Oh,
To explain?
yeah, that's the beginning of the definition. So it's like acupuncture, lines,
Meridian, meridians.
meridians, and but it's very very thick in the lore of New Age, books about this, and particularly out of Britain. But it's just a part of the understanding of the esoteric aspect of the Earth, right? So the grid is absolutely essential in any of this discussion of the Earth, so-called Earth grid, because the Earth grid had been hijacked long ago by dark forces. But in a healthy Earth, this flow of energy, which is literally around the surface of the Earth, um, is actually nourishing to all life, on the surface of the Earth. And it's just sort of the design of all planets. They have ley lines. Now, the ley lines have intersection points, right? So the points that they intersect are likely to be portals because there's an amplification of the frequency where they're intersecting. So many books have been written about, that are, that you see on Gaia TV and places like that, that all the great pyramids, ziggurats, and that sort of thing, they're built on intersections of ley lines, from Japan to Central America. I mean, yeah, I haven't really read that literature, but I've certainly seen it for decades. And
Cathedrals also, European
and great
cathedrals.
cathedrals, Chartres Cathedral, these are known factors taking into account by architects of these great temples and other, mainly temples, right? So the pyramid itself is on intersection of ley line, and guess what? Göbekli Tepe is on a ley line, and if you want to get into that, there's a very fascinating story about that. But these so the Iran is a one big site of intersection, and apparently there are 12 stargates, they call them. These are portals that are very potent portals. There are many portals, but these are major stargates. So instead of portal, they call them stargates. So this is Stargate number 10. Iran has what, and so that's why it was a location where in distant past, pre-ancient, prehistoric, this is where off-planet beings would, engage with the Earth in all these ways that are now being revealed to us. And the even deeper background on this is that and this squares with the Ranch book. The Ranch book states that the Earth is a relatively young planet, but it was planned to be a exchange center for the galaxy, of which there are only four. And so that means it's a
Wow.
very major location.
Where are the
And
other three? Where are the other three?
doesn't tell you. But it's enough to say, that it is the reason there's so much focus on this planet is that it's a specially experimental planet. 1 in 10 planets are experimental in their design and even in the DNA, according to Rancher Book. So we're one of every 10. One has this designation because the universe creators use these experimental planet to experiment with they tweak the DNA, and they improve something here, something there, and they watch it over millennia to see how the experiment goes. So one of the experiments that they had here on our planet, according to the Rancher beings, was adjustment of cell biology, which caused an error. And the error is an outcome of the experiment, and the error is that bacteria and viruses, which are supposed to be benign, went rogue and became, parasitical and deleterious to health. And that doesn't.
But wasn't that done through various earlier races on the planet? Did they do that?
There's
Turn
always
them
two
into
discourses on this. There's the discourse that says that ETs did these things,
okay.
and then there's other discourses that said angels do these things, and then other
Oh,
discourses that say they work together. So yeah, I mean, there needs to be PhD programs to go into this stuff. I mean, so the
But the other
ranches.
discourse here is that germs, viruses are Louis Pasteur stuff. And what's emerging with holistic health is that the terrain is all important. It's not these little bugs in the terrain. That if you have acid or alkaline or different types of terrain, then the germs or viruses modify. So the holistic consciousness sees this holism of the connectedness of all, and thus the terrain, thus organic agriculture. You got to have the soil, the terrain of the soil, a certain balance and richness to have the healthy plants. So that's I'm going to have to hold that what you just said, Byron, up against terrain understanding. Like they're
Um,
making these viruses, but they had to create an environment. They had to mess. If they made an error and
yeah,
some viruses or bacteria went bad, went
right,
rogue,
yeah.
then something was wrong with some kind of terrain.
These are not the terrain. These are a separate factor. The terrain is the whole biological, web of
No,
life.
it's your body. Another related term is host resistance.
Yeah,
So, like if the virus, if you have a strong immune system, your body can handle the
yeah,
virus. Or if you, or like growing up when we all got measles and mumps, like it
yeah.
was part of the maturation of our immune system to deal with it. So rather than germ theory, which it's external. So, I mean, that's just one
Yeah,
point
but
that a
that's
lot of,
important to hold that up against the big picture of what Byron has just said about what the narrative is around the Earth being an experiment, and they made an error, and these bad bacteria viruses popped out. So
Ellen,
maybe, yeah, I
Well,
mean, maybe they made an error in something more fundamental that then looked like
yeah,
the
maybe
error.
maybe in the terrain as well. Yeah, I mean, they
Well,
don't
it
In
give like,
this
has to be.
yeah.
in the
So
Sumerian
yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
in the
Ellen.
Yeah,
Sumerian cuneiform writings, it
yeah.
says that you had Enlil and Enki, the two gods, the two brother gods, and so they created humans because the lower gods rebelled against doing all the they were doing all the work, and it was too much work for them on this planet, heavy atmosphere for them. So I suppose they were another dimension, fifth dimensional or something. So they rebelled, and then um uh Enki got the idea, well, we'll convert the highest life form we find on Earth, we'll turn those into workers, So that's when suddenly all these changes happened in our brain. I think it was like 200,000 years ago or whatever, all
Right.
these, remarkable changes that made us able to hear the voice of the gods through the right brain, all that stuff. Left brain, we could, yeah, all that. And then we wound up so Enlil was upset because Enki had injected the spark of the gods in us, but he said, well, I couldn't get him to reproduce without that. And so, but the problem was we reproduced and got to be too much, and it was too noisy for Enlil, and so um he sent the flood, and then and was upset that Enki had saved Noah and the ark, and some life forms. But Enki said, well, do you really want to destroy this whole project that we put all this work into? He said, what about if we just limit their ability to live? Before we could live for 1,000 years. He said, what if we just limit their lifespans? We'll send disease, we'll pit them against each other, we'll send make it so they can't communicate with each other well, the Tower of Babel story, that sort of thing. So we'll just make them more controllable. And ever since, they've been trying to control us,
Right.
whoever they is. Anyway, I thought that was a pretty good story. I mean, there's a lot of, you can actually trace that. That's actually in the chromosomes. So,
Yeah, I mean, you could spend, months on the different kinds of origin stories. That's one of them. Really from the Zechariah Sitchin sort of lineage. And but there's so many other origin stories for the Earth other than that one, although that's a very compelling story. But if it's coming from Sitchin, he's kind of been set aside, lately, as you may have
yeah,
noted.
well, I know he did a lot of his translations weren't correct, but if you do the correct translation, that story is still in there in that Atrahasis or whatever it is. I forget the names of the books.
Yeah, I don't know who has done anything like Sitchin that out of the translations he created an entire universe more or less out of that. But maybe somebody else has done better translations and has written books, popular books. I'm not aware of anybody that did.
Well, there are dictionaries, and there are whole translations from the accepted dictionaries.
Yeah, they're the dictionaries, but I mean he wrote 10 books that were bestsellers, sold more than any book in our lifetime. So nobody's done
Mhm.
anything like that. They have better translations, and the people that actually read the cuneiform tablets have come out and said he doesn't know how to read cuneiform tablets. He has no training. And the more that got out, the less people were paying attention.
But you
So
can get an accurate translation of all those books. That's available on the internet.
right, but you'd have to be a scholar. You'd have to be trained. You'd have to be really, and nobody
No,
has.
but I mean, if they have translated. I mean, I think you can find it. I mean, I've found
You
it.
can get the raw
Of
translations,
course, I
right?
asked
Yeah,
AI, but AI
you can do
finds
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all interesting. All I was trying to get across is in the origin story of the Urantia book, there is this statement that errors were made by the angelic beings, distinct from the ETs. And we have with GFL a very different rendition of human origins, but that's beyond the scope of this discussion, I think. I wanted to get in two other items. About Iran that everybody should know that Iran is an anchor for a portal that is one of the great portals on Earth. There's a huge discussion of this. We don't have time to get into too much of it, but that's why there's on the surface of Iran, basically they said, and they seem to agree with Trump, who claimed that the treaty with Iran, from 2014, was it, that
15.
Obama, 15, that was a cover story for the deep state to enable nuclear war. So folks should know that. That's what they're claiming. And that justifies what Trump did in tearing up that agreement. But
Say that again, tearing it up was the cover for.
that the treaty, which was endorsed by the UN Security Council, by the way, that they had for controlling nuclear weapons development, as you know, Diane.
Ron
Um,
nuclear, yes, I was very involved in that, and well, in activities around that in Washington. Yeah.
yeah, so you know this story much better, but what they're claiming here, I'm just telling you, I'm not saying I agree with it. They're claiming that was a cover story for the deep state to enable Iran to develop nuclear weapons. That's
I'm
what
sorry, I missed it. What's the cover story?
That
the
doesn't make sense. Yeah.
I know that's something we could research and we could show that GFL got it wrong.
I mean, tearing it up was provoking allowing nuclear development. But
Right.
anyway, maybe
Yeah,
that's too much.
it's complicated, but I think it's something you and I should look into, Diane, a little bit.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
and Josh just left a comment in
Okay.
chat about a book, Iran Leviathan, I think.
Okay. One last thing on Iran is that that is going to be, it's like a living library of artifacts, information, and I don't even know if I should say this, but there's biological beings that are frozen in place there that will reawaken. It's like a sci-fi movie or something. So that there will be a day when this biological artifacts will come to life. That's down there. I mean, that's a pretty wild thing to talk about. But before we end, I wanted to talk about David
I just
Clements.
say something about Iran. Like, is there
Yeah,
something like King Cyrus is like a major hero also
yeah.
in Israel and Judaism and like for freedom? And was that before the deep state took over? And I mean, of course, he has nothing to do like with the
You mean the
um
Cyrus cylinders, the Cyrus
almost
that
every
look,
day. King Cyrus, yeah.
King
yeah,
Cyrus.
yeah, he
Yeah, I
was a
mean,
good
I
And
think
one,
the
good one.
scroll that was going around and I used to live on King Cyrus Street in Jerusalem when I was in college. Yeah. Mm.
Um, Cyrus is said to be a good guy against the deep state because, Babylon, right, was the preceding empire, and he knocked them out. And Babylon were definitely the bad guys. They were the progenitors of today's deep state, or the Babylon Empire. That was, it's also biblical. In the book of Daniel, Babylon is the place where the demonic is in control, if you get into the Bible. So I think there's a lot to that, to the idea that Cyrus was with sort of with the proto white hat.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now I got to
Yeah.
insert here. I sent most everybody on our New View team that book by David Jacko, Jacko's book, Intuitive Warrior. Y'all got it, right? Okay. Now here's another book called Awakened Warrior. He goes through a number of his past lives in detail. And he claims he was Cyrus.
Oh, right. Okay.
And we're hoping to get him to talk to him one day.
Oh, that's a big claim. Okay.
He makes a lot of big claims, but he's an amazing psychic warrior, Byron. He
You
is,
know,
and I think that we're going to see these ones we mentioned earlier, the military peace warriors that want a planet of peace. It's like the ancient samurai ethic. You're so strong that you don't fight physically. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because
for sure.
because it's a mind power. It's a spiritual power
Right.
that's going to bring in this truth. I think that it's really important that we be connecting with these kind of military guys. And we talked about that earlier in this program. White
Well,
hats,
certainly.
whatever, whistleblowers.
Same thing. White hats are that
Yes,
of
yes.
that lineage for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. Yeah, this is a very dangerous missions. For example, the mission to go under the CERN lab, I think we talked about that last time,
Say more,
was a
though.
dangerous kinetic mission there. And going into Caracas was a dangerous military mission. Very dangerous mission. These are
Caracas.
warriors. Yeah, Venezuela, Caracas,
Okay,
Venezuela. Yeah.
okay.
Do they have anything to say about Delcy as the vice
They
president?
don't say, they allude to Delcy though, in there, right, Alana? I think they do. And more or less, it's very sort of abstract, but that they're sort of saying, hey, look, this is not what you think it is. It's a surgical strike on behalf of of taking the deep state by the throat, basically, and saying we can take your people out, and we can interrupt a major node of corruption like this. And so this is where Trump is supposed to look good because he's enabling the white hats to do these operations.
Are you assuming that Maduro is an element of the deep state, an instrument of the deep state? Is that what you're saying?
My question
It
as
is
well.
assuming, I mean, I haven't done enough, I can't, I'm reporting on what these guys say. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Chavistas, right? Right? Talking about the
These people
Chavistas.
of deep state, I don't buy that. Sorry. No
Well,
way.
all right, say more. Why wouldn't he be a tool of the deep state? Why not? Why
Because
not?
he's all about empowering the people and proclaiming Venezuela's sovereignty and using Venezuela's resources to benefit the people of the country and to form, do all the things that we on the New View try to promote, creating communes and communities of mutual aid and mutual benefit and eliminating the plutocrats and the oligarchs.
Well,
I mean,
that's exactly right. Marilyn saying that's really important point. And again, we're back to germ theory versus terrain. You eliminate Trump or whoever the leaders are. If we don't restructure the basic rules of wealth production and ownership, that's the terrain. If we don't make that conscious and change it, we're just going to create whoever your favorite dictator is or whoever your favorite hero is. It's still just going to disempower the people unless that structure that's creating war and poverty and homelessness and social problems, unless that structure is reformed. That's where, like Ellen's working, you other working with money reform, my movements for land rights and earth rights. Those are the deep structures. Right now, they're set up for war. The importance of setting the land and money up for economics of peace, so that we wouldn't create deep state leaders, corrupted leaders. So I think there is a problem with calling Maduro an agent of the deep state. I agree with Marilyn. What
And
do others
also the
think?
people, I know
I
the
think
people
it's
who
been
were election observers that he was, that he won, that it's propaganda that he didn't win the election.
Yeah,
That
Gloria
the people,
Coelho. Gloria was
that he,
there in Venezuela monitoring the
and
election.
somebody else I heard that he won legitimately, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, Everything I've heard said that he stole that election.
All right,
See,
but the observers that we know said that it was fair. So,
The other observers said it was stolen, though.
so it's two different information flows.
and we
Always.
don't
That's it.
know.
There's always going to be controversy. But the even deeper layer is the election software. Um, sorry. So here's something that's, in the GFL that is in a lot of right-wing sources, which is that Maduro and his team there was the enabler of the election theft, even in the US. Okay, it sounds crazy as hell. Okay, but there's a huge discourse on that. And it's in, right? You heard this, Alana, right? It was in there where they go into that. But it's abstract, but they're talking about election software and hardware distributed all over the world, and the node for that is Venezuela.
And the solution to that was to get back to the community monitoring and to paper ballots, to the material evidence, and get out of the electronic digital systems that can be easily corrupted from outside.
The evidence for that is coming especially from the guy who is the main whistleblower on the 2020 election, who was the owner. Remember the guy that was the pillows guy that has the pillows?
Oh, Michael,
Not that guy, but the other guy, billionaire guy, is the one that's done the most research and has this ready to go. Not just having to do with Venezuela as the nexus, but with Serbia and someplace in Southeast Asia where the hardware and software is to be found. So they have an allusion to the court cases as
Huh.
well. The GFL states, did you pick that up, Alana? The reason for the QFS, we should probably end on this. So the QFS, right? Everybody know what that is?
no.
That's the most difficult for me to understand. I think Ellen has some
Yeah,
grasp
I
of
want to
that.
know what the QFS is because there was no explanation for that. What is that?
Yeah, that was what I wanted to maybe interview you about, Ellen, sometime.
how about now?
Well, my understanding is that it's
Financial
it's totally digital, but in a good way. In other words, it's like everything's on a blockchain, and therefore everything's transparent. So there's no way you can cheat because you can trace everything back to where it came from. You can see what it is, and um, so they don't need banks. They don't need middlemen. They don't need human middlemen. It's just everything works together. So it's automated, but it's automated in a very fair way so that you can see what's going on, that sort of thing. Although I don't know how we all get rich from that. So I assume it means that at the same time we have AI or robots or whatever in a good way, creating all the abundance we need, creating UBIs for everybody and then so we've all got abundance to start with and then we've got this fair exchange system where it's not possible for certain parties to exchange. I mean, basically what we think the BRICS are up to, the BRICS system where they're trying to exchange among themselves and put it all on a blockchain and make it all fair and transparent, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's in that direction, and there's a lot in here about the fact that the QFS is underlying all of this. That they're going after the deep state so they can implement the new money system, financial system. But it's quantum computing, guys. Quantum computing. It's not normal computing. This is
So is
quantum.
that what the Q stands for?
Yes, it's quantum
Yeah,
computing,
financial.
which has off-world support, literally tech support off-world. for it. Okay, so that's in 2 or 3 other transmissions. So the getting at these deep state nodes where a lot of corruption, in other words, so you're doing a trade or a transaction. If you can't really, if you don't record it well, there's a little space lag in there where corruption can enter. Literally, in you're not settling the deal in a way that's fully documented, large deals. So corrupt forces get in the middle of that. That's why you need the blockchain, to document everything in the settlement. If that makes sense. I didn't explain it very well.
I have a question for Ellen. There's a big question in any financial system. Who profits from introducing new money? You need to introduce new money every year as the world economy expands. And in the system we have, the Federal Reserve gets all that advantage, and it's a huge advantage. In the blockchain system, as least as it came out with Bitcoin, the advantage goes to the people who are doing the computing to keep track of this huge database of every financial transaction that's ever happened. They get rewarded from that by they get the benefit of the new money that's created. And the question is, in QFS, who has the benefit from the creation of new money?
My recollection, I think it was QFS. I follow different ones. Do you ever watch The Truth Can Change Your Life? That's pretty interesting. But anyway, so I think it's QFS that says that there will be no money. It's not a matter of money. We're talking about trade, trade exchanges. What you put on the blockchain is the thing you want to trade, or your hours of work or whatever. And then, that's all valued somehow, and then you keep track of all that. I mean, I don't know the details, but I think
this is the main thing about righteous or correctly fair money systems, is that nobody's profiteering. They're like a kind of an infrastructure to facilitate trade, not for profit. So if you're your job is to maintain these systems, you should get paid for your labor on these systems. But nobody's pulling off in kind of an interest usury from the money system. That's separating money as an elegant exchange and trade mechanism from money as the power to control and accumulate wealth. Does that make sense? Would you agree, Ellen?
Yeah, but I can also see where there's this push for gold now, because the trouble with the non-gold money is that it can be, I think I saw that in a podcast yesterday, that, it can be, fiat money can be expanded and re-hypothecated and all that stuff, whereas gold it's only X amount and that's it. But there is that problem that you get one party that can, or one group that can accumulate all the gold, and then everybody else is.
Yeah, so you're coming down then with gold to the basic question of who owns the gold. And you're going to some will try to get more, because we have this mythology that gold is somehow important. That's just a symbol system that a lot have bought into. I can't drink it. I can't eat it. I can't be housed in a piece of gold. So it's a total mythology, the gold rush thing. But I want to take it down.
I think that it holds its value. That's the value of it.
Well, listen, I have a question. If anybody has any input on this, why did the Fed move 2/3 of the U.S.'s silver reserve to Switzerland? What's going on?
I didn't know they did. When did they do that?
I never heard of that.
This past week.
Maybe it has to do with that big bank in Switzerland, the Central Bank of Central Banks.
You mean the BIS? Okay.
The IBS, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But back to how we have transparent information, and you're making that a key positive point of the QFS. And I want to take it down to the ground again. We have a very powerful digital technology now that maps who owns what land where, what's it valued at, who benefits, who loses, and the land and money problem, again, solved together, because we can now track the value derived from Earth ownership. Where is that value going to? Right now, to very few, being translated into the measure of value, which is the money system, also controlled. But when we see, as we have with our Baltimore project, that in these poor neighborhoods, the land value is going to the rich neighborhoods because 2/3 of those people in the poor neighborhoods are renters. But then the mortgage owers that buying houses, huge amounts of that mortgage is going as interest to the banks. But back to these poor neighborhoods, it's a form of what Martin Luther King called domestic colonialism. We are extracting wealth from our poor areas to our rich areas within the country, just as colonialism has done exteriorly in other countries. So it's like a hologram. What we're doing in our own neighborhoods is what we're doing in politics out there. It's a claim to resource control.
Well, it's good that you allude to Martin Luther King today.
Yay, today is it. This is the day.
I could give you some quotes of Martin Luther King on Henry George, but I will not do so. I'll desist.
No, we need to. I want to hear what Byron has to say. He wanted to get to other areas like
Yeah, a couple of
Oh,
other
Greenland. We haven't done
I
Greenland.
wanted to hear what he said about Greenland. Yeah,
We did.
No,
Art.
Can I
that
just
was
say
all I
one
had on
thing?
Greenland.
or maybe Ukraine.
I
If
didn't
you have
understand.
something else, I want to
Relevant
hear
to
more.
Trump's taking over of it, wanting to take over.
Yeah, that's take 2 hours to talk that through. But we have to do our
Can I?
research because that might get us into Ismael Perez, who I wanted to broach him with you. But
Okay.
I think
I'm
did you have
interested.
something, Ellen, that you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say for Marilyn's concern about, I saw that Josh had mentioned Alex Craner. Alex Craner's theory is that they made a deal. I mean, because when Maduro got to the US, he's shaking hands and glad handing everybody, and it didn't look like a capture. It looked like a deal. And
Yeah.
so Alex Craner thinks that he's going into the witness protection program, not, he's not going to jail.
I think
So
that's very
anyway,
likely.
just
Yeah.
a thought.
I think it's very likely. Yeah, I agree with that. Esmael Perez, they're around the edges of the GFL, work, which is a substantive body of work, over 1,000 videos, 1 hour long. Are these kind of hanger-on kind of people like Ismael Perez, who states that he's getting direct communiques from the Earth Alliance, and he sits on, in front of a screen and reads from the communiques to his audience, and he's got a big following. And this guy is not that bright, and there's no way he's making this stuff up. He's being fed something. The reason we
Can
know
you say his name?
it's
Ishmael.
IS is not an H. IS is real. Sorry, Ishmael. Ismael Perez. Perez. Look under his name, you'll find it.
Where does he live?
Don't know.
Okay.
He's American, but he's got this big kind of new age following kind of stuff, where he makes all his claims but I don't know how this guy could possibly come up with this stuff, but it sounds a lot like the GFL, overlaps about 30 or 40%. And so what I find is there's a lot of this kind of thing out there where there's spin-offs that corroborate it, but they're not very reliable. I don't find him reliable, but he recently did, a very eye-opening thing, said that the plan that the White Hats have is to create global governance where there would be 22 regional federations. And one of the federations is the North American Federation, which will include Greenland, Mexico, US, and Canada. That's why Trump is doing this, according to him, according to this guy, Perez, that this
Greenland
is
is North America? He's
on
kind of green.
orders. Okay. On orders from the White Hats. This is what you're going to do. This is going to be your federation. There's going to be another federation in Central America, another federation in South America. I think 3 federations in South America, 2 or 3 in Europe, just all these federations. and then they're going to federate the federations.
Yeah, confederal model for global governance. But the question is their intention. Is it maximalist global governance or minimalist? That's been a dialogue in the global governance for decades. I would think most of us would be for minimalist, in which case you have to delineate the decentralization of power down to the localities. And you have to have representative and the subsidiarity nested from the power in the localities on up to minimal global governance. And while I don't hear any of this dialogue, look, I was involved in the world people wanted to establish the World Citizens Assembly based on a federated model. But starting from the local on up. So this is something to watch if that's what they're putting out. Again, if this whatever galactic viewpoint is, they don't have their feet on the earth like we do. We have to acknowledge our power as earth sovereigns because our bodies are here. So
No,
we have
this
to, I
is
think,
the human element. This is not, the ETs are definitely not dictating that. No way. This is
Yeah,
the
I
human.
certainly don't want anything top-down control.
No, no,
You,
no, no,
you
no.
must do
Guys,
this.
look, no,
That's not right.
this is not the neocons taking over the world. It is not that. It's not the global, it's not Biden. This is the good guys.
I
Okay.
want to say, what about the residents of Greenland? They should have a say in this. The people, the indigenous people, which is the bulk of the population, they need to have a say in
yeah,
their own self-determination, and they
Yeah.
be
they need to be at
independent
the
and they want
table.
to be part of this North American node. They may not want to be part of that unless certain
Yeah.
terms apply that assure, there some level of autonomy and sovereignty. And just to go back briefly to what Owen was saying about how when Maduro was captured, he smiled and made all these positive signs. There's another interpretation to that. I don't know what's actually right, but the other interpretation, voiced particularly by Pepe Escobar, is that he was sending signals to the people of Venezuela with his thumbs up and his victory sign. Look, yes, they've got me in chains, but hang tough. We will prevail. They may have put me behind bars, but you are the Bolivarian revolution, and stay strong and everything will be okay. That's the other interpretation of what that was referring to.
Pepe Escobar is a really great journalist, but he's another example of this layer of alternative journalists that have no idea about the Earth Alliance and the White Hats at all. That's what really riles me about this research, is the only people that are tuned into it are just a small group that I'm trying to mention. Ismael Perez, another one is Dr. David Clements. These guys overlap, but Pepe's usually pretty good, but on this one, all these guys like Pepe Escobar have no knowledge of this layer of activity.
Okay, we'll do a time note of this in our video. I'll send it to Pepe because I arranged for the talks between Pepe and Michael Hudson a number of years ago. The first time they communicated online. They'd been admiring each other for years, and we finally got them together due to my efforts.
Wow.
So
Michael
we'll try
Sally?
to get that connection going.
No, I don't know if he's ready for this. This is not
I mean,
research.
maybe he preparate. I don't think I jump in like this.
He needs to be prepped. These guys have no idea about the ET presence.
Well, then we're going to prep them, Byron.
Well,
That's
let's
the
do
point.
it. But yeah,
let's do it.
This is not exactly, well, this is kind of introductory. But I mean, this is the difficulty that we have, you guys. You have to accept a bunch of premises. One, that there's an ET presence, number one. Number two, that they're benign. Number three, that they have an alliance with humans. This is a big stretch. Not only that is there alliance with humans, but the humans are a faction of the U.S. military. Not only that, but they have a transaction with Trump, who's half crazy. Not only that, Trump is allied with Netanyahu. I mean, this is hard. This is all speculative, and we have to be really careful. And I don't want to be identified with. I'm a reporter.
Don't shoot the messenger. Listen, let's decide here. It's 2:40. We've gone over our usual time, so we don't want to go much longer. I think I'd like to suggest we wrap it up with any last comments and then the last comment by Byron. And then if you would all stay on, those who can, for 5 more minutes. There's something I want to mention and I don't want that recorded. And I want input from you guys, okay? So continue on. Let's go another 5 or 6 minutes. Hey, Byron?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I'll make a final comment and then I'll
Okay.
go. Yeah.
Any final comments from the rest of us?
Yes, Ellen.
Liz, Ellen,
Yeah, Liz first. We haven't heard.
unmute Lizzie, dear. Oh no.
I am like most people, many people, I should say most, I'm not that familiar with the history of this. I've only followed it sporadically. I have absolutely no opinion one way or another. I do have some observations, and I do think that these are, to me, common sense questions. Number one, we do know that there is an ease of creating all kinds of false flags to create wars. And I'd like to know what your opinion is about the infiltration process within your movement, because every movement, every single movement that has ever been created has been infiltrated of any significance at the geopolitical level, at the theatrical level, at Hollywood level, at publishing level, at the entire educational system level. Okay, so with that in mind, I'd like to know from you how you factor in that quality where it's been infused in easily into what may be authentic exchanges, but how can you tell the difference? That's my question.
Elizabeth, that was so well put. Thank you. That's excellent question. Yeah, all of it is infiltrated. The GFL has infiltration. You can pick it out. And I don't want to get into a lot of depth, but I have a degree in theology. I just got this degree in biblical theology, and they put out something about Jesus about 2 months ago that was so obviously ejected to throw us off that I thought it's a sign of infiltration. It was just cockamamie stuff. So some of this stuff is really off the wall stuff. It's noise. But I think with GFL, it's like 20 or 30% noise. But if you're, watching CNN, it's 50% noise.
Comparative.
So you're doing better than CNN. Okay.
Yeah.
Or if you're in a graduate program here, in international relations, that's probably 50%, propaganda. So that's why I pay attention to it. But yeah, it's definitely infiltrated. It's also the minds of the channelers, right? These are channelers. So their minds, their biases come out. So that's kind of infiltration through their subjective, states. And so no, you have to, that's why I'm kind of, my brand has become, I'm a friendly critic of GFL. So when I find something that's off, that looks like infiltration, I'm gonna state it. So thank you. But I mean, isn't that the case with everything we've ever done? It's infiltrated.
Well, that was my point. Since everything is, I cannot consider that this wouldn't be a part of that infiltration, but it is a little bit more challenging because in all the other systems, you do have people walking on the earth, you do have documentary evidence, you do have ways of actually verifying certain things that I think may not be as verifiable except by your sense of instinct and your own self-knowledge. As you said, as someone who studied theology, you get an interpretation of something, but the actual source never has to be produced. So that's obvious. And again, it isn't about it not being authentic in some ways, but it is so challenging, I think, to in this arena, I think, to really be able to nail it, and that does add a quality issue that I just think has to be factored in to the whole that whole subject.
Yeah, it's very, very well, good analysis, and it's psychological in my case. I like adventurous thought, and so that's why I've been kicked out of universities a couple of times. And this is adventurous.
Yay for you.
This is adventurous, but because I've been inside this for maybe 30 years, I can recognize the noise better than most
Mhm.
anybody.
Discernment,
Yeah,
intuition, and discernment.
yeah,
Yep. No, there's
yeah, that is the case.
Ellen?
I think I heard it yesterday. There's something about that if they showed up on the White House lawn, it would freak everybody out. I mean, there was an experiment in the 40s where it did freak everybody out. Um, so now we have the ability, we have AI and the whole like podcast, YouTube that go around the world. We actually have the ability to communicate globally, and so now they have and we've had channelers for years and they write books and stuff, but they don't get out there all that much. But now that you can put it on the screen on YouTube, which is, very well visited, so they can get the message out to the reason we believe it is because it makes sense. It's like, oh, that explains it. And I never thought of that. So anyway, that's my thought, that it's just a stage in progression that eventually they'll do more exposure or more disclosure and more, but we're at the
Gradual.
stage where they're planting these seeds for the people who are ready to hear it.
It's coming. It is. I'm seeing it everywhere.
Anybody else?
And I like that telepathy idea that apparently that's what the Lemurians, they were all telepathic and therefore they couldn't hurt each other because they could feel it if they hurt someone. So they didn't need politics. They didn't, they made like collective decisions and everything ran
Yeah,
beautifully.
and there's a lot of us Lemurians who are back.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else to wrap it up before Byron has a final say?
I'll just say thank you. Thank you, Byron. It's very interesting. As you say, everything you talk about is highly speculative. For me personally, for that reason, it's hard to me to accept it as true. I'm not saying it's not true, but I personally haven't seen evidence to convince me that it is true. So I'll just leave it an open question. And I myself focus on how real people live on this earth in communities, how they interact and how they treat each other, and the structures that they live within, that, flesh and blood that you see on the street. That's kind of my focus. But thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Wrap us up, Byron.
I'll tell you a little bit of Martin Luther King's story.
Okay.
I represented Bill Pepper. Bill Pepper is, some of you may know about him, and his book and his work in his many books prove that King was not killed by James Earl Ray, and that is not well known enough, and everybody here should be well aware of that they had a court case in 1999, and the plaintiff was Coretta Scott King, and they proved that somebody else shot King. Everybody know that, right?
Yeah.
And they also showed that Jesse Jackson was an accomplice. Everybody
Whoa.
should know that as well. And so the poignant thing about King's death is that even people in his inner circle were complicit, which just as Elizabeth was saying, everything is infiltrated. But King had the plan to do the people's villa. What did he call the people's occupation of Washington, D.C.?
The poor peoples,
Poor
are
people's,
uniting poor people of all races.
yeah, and to occupy
people's
the city.
Yeah.
And
Why would Jesse Jackson cooperate?
look what happened in his career after that.
You need to read, Diane.
Power,
You need
ego.
You need to read Bill Pepper's books. I can't recommend them highly enough. He is such a thoughtful and careful thinker. Read his books, and it explains the whole thing. I really, really highly recommend them. Thanks for mentioning that, Byron.
Yeah, I've got the main book here, Diane. We'll bring it to you sometime. But he had a stellar career after that, Jesse Jackson. But point being that here in Washington, we need to do that. We need to do what King said. We need to have and shut this down. And one of the best slogans would be defund the CIA. And I think that would be in line with Martin Luther King's vision. We have to, that's why I'm for the white hats, even if they're fictional. And we need to go after these things. And King would have been in the lead, and was in the lead on that mission. So that's what I want to leave you with.
Okay, everybody, stay on, but we'll close the recording. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Byron. This has been so much fun and so deep and important. And anybody who stumbles upon the New View recording, thanks for joining us. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Thanks, Byron.
Thanks.
Thank you.